now, Tony, who do we have as the guest speaker for today?
Today we have Chris Kennedy from Reliant Lending. He's a local mortgage broker. Chris will be talking about the appraisal gap and what it means to your client.
Thank you so much for having me on. You have a really good radio voice. I dig that, Tony.
Thanks, Chris.
It is pretty fantastic.
Yeah.
Hey, first, I guess let's get a little background information on you, Chris. Where'd you grow up? What's kind of your background here?
So grew up here in Sacramento. Well, first off, down in like the Bay Area, the Rohnert Park, Santa Rosa area, and then moved up here when I was a kid, probably 8th grade, and went to El Camino High School. Grew up in Carmichael area, and been here ever since. Did a little stint in the Navy. Lived in San Diego for a while, and then came back. So that got me right back to my old neighborhood.
Nice. Now, how did you end up in the mortgage business?
Kind of funny. I was working for a friend's dad in finance at a Volvo dealership on Fulton Avenue, and I met an Enterprise person, somebody at Enterprise Car Rentals, and they were getting into the mortgage business and said, "Hey, I think you should do this." And I was like, "Well, let me go look at it." And talked with somebody. Next thing you know, I was quitting my job. I started in the mortgage business, and that was like 2001. It was at the end of 2001. Yeah. So
nice.
All right. So at your Reliant Lending, how many lenders or loan officers do you have working there?
So we do have a few. We have a couple loan officers, but I'm really the only person here in the office. I'm right over off of Northrop. You know where Northrop and Northrop and Howe, kind of over by the Panera Bread. We're right behind Panera Bread. And so I'm the only loan officer in the office. I have 5 support staff. So that just support my production. The other loan officers kind of don't come into the office. They work out of their house and, that kind of stuff. So we have a couple out in Roseville area and one in Elk Grove.
All right, nice. Right down the street from the SAR office.
Yes,
on
exactly. Yes.
Which, if you haven't been there recently, we're doing a big remodel for the event center. And I was just in there yesterday, and I'm blown away by it. It's really cool. So once we open back up, it'll be nice to have that brand new shiny event center with all our meetings. Yeah.
What kind of events are you guys going to be doing there?
Well, I mean, that's our space for everything. Classes we hold, our weekly, monthly meetings. We also rent it out on the weekends or after hours for weddings, parties, anything you can think of. So
nice.
Yeah. And so with this remodel, I'm sure we'll change the price appropriately.
Yeah, exactly.
But SAR members, I'll throw this out here for people listening, SAR members get a discount when renting. So make sure you contact our events department. You can rent it for, a business seminar or, a personal party or something. So
you could even get open house signs to like point you right to your wedding destination,
Exactly.
Just, hey, I need to pick up a few of those, some of those arrows over there. That's where you go,
Exactly.
Nice.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Hey, well, let's see, you wanted to talk about the appraisal gap. Can you kind of give us a little more information on that and kind of give us an intro to it and what that all means and what you're experiencing?
For sure. So it's just not me experiencing this. It's every single lender, every single real estate agent out there that is, swinging the axes every day and producing, that is running into the appraisal gap. And there's really kind of 2 scenarios with the appraisal gap. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to share my screen with you, if that's okay. And I put down some notes just to kind of keep me on track, because I'll get off track and start talking about random things. But what I wanted to do was also put down, let's see here. I am going to, it kind of comes down to, what does the appraisal gap mean to not only you as a real estate agent, the lender and also to the client, the end user. And the two scenarios I have are kind of under the county loan limit and over the county loan limit, and what to really watch out for when you're out there and you are making offers over. So really the first one is under the county loan limit, and we're going to run across that a little bit more often than we will over the county loan limit. So over the county loan limit, what that means is Sacramento, El Dorado, Yolo, Placer, we all have the same loan limit of 598. Okay. But if you start getting out into the outskirts, we go down to Stanislaus County or other counties, you could have a much lower loan limit. So if you are showing property down there or something like that, you're going to run into this even more. So we're going to start right out of the gate with under the county loan limit. So let's say you list your property at 500,000, or you're making an offer on a property that's listed at 500,000, and you offer 550 for that property. Now the appraisal value comes in. Let's say it comes in at 525. Well, you're going to have an appraisal gap of $25,000 there. So let's say you're putting $100,000 down on or 20% down on a $500,000 purchase. That means that you're going to have to come in with not only the closing costs, but you're going to have to come in with the down payment, and you're going to have to come in with the appraisal gap. So that would mean that you're going to have a cash to close of $140,000. Okay. So where this gets a little tricky is let's say you had somebody that was approved for all the way to their max DTI. You've really pushed them up on their debt to income ratio. Well, what happens when you offer over on a property is that their new tax base is actually based on that higher amount. So just for instance, let's just use 1.25. It's different everywhere. It could be much higher in like Elk Grove and one of the newer home developments where you're going to have Melrose and things like that. But let's just use 1.25. And let's say that you took it and you did offer that 550,000, but you had them approved at 500 and they were bringing in the difference. So it shouldn't affect anything, but it does, because it affects the amount of tax that they're going to pay. So that will push them above their maximum threshold of 50% to, let's say, 52%. Well, I'm sorry, 51%, because it's going to increase their tax base by $52 a month. So they're going to have to not only bring in that 140, but they may, this is a big may, have to bring in an additional $11,200 to lower their debt to income ratio back down to where it was before. So their new cash to close on somebody that was, let's say, approved at the max loan amount would be $151,000. This is a person that planned on bringing $100,000 in the very beginning. So just be well aware of that and make sure that they are ready to go. And, the loan officer too, that you're working with, make sure that they know and are conveying to you how much money these people actually have and can do that. So just be aware of it. Do you guys have any questions so far?
Well, a lot of interesting, information about that. What's the best way or the proper way to approach this with a client?
I would say 100% being upfront. Just be upfront, be as transparent as possible. Most of the agents I work with are super upfront, especially right now, about like, hey, what this can cause them. And people love that. If you're upfront and you're telling, it's like, give them the worst case out of the gate and then bring it in even better, Does that kind of help?
Yeah. Now, do you think appraisers take this into consideration when appraising properties?
Man, have you guys had Lundquist on?
Not
Yeah,
yet.
I got an article about him talking about, he just posted one April 6th, an explosion of appraisal waivers has been the hugest thing. About 47.4% of Freddie Mac loans have been waived alone. And especially with refinancing, they're, waiving that. But as for putting in offers, we tend to see now with the market that the appraisal contingency is waived in
Yeah,
a lot of offers with this low inventory to kind of beat out and be on top.
yeah. I've been running across, so when it's in a more cookie cutter neighborhood or a where it's in a true neighborhood and not, in an area. Carmichael's really kind of broken up into not, bigger pieces of land and all that other kind of stuff. So I don't get a lot there, but like Elk Grove or Roseville, stuff like that, I've been getting a lot of just Freddie Mac appraisal waivers, which seems to be working out really well. And it also kind of comes down to the people's credit score or how much down payment that they have as well, where you're running into seeing that. So that is a big help when they are, bringing in more money, have better credit and stuff like that.
For sure, it's always a worrisome thing to have to talk to them about how they got it beat out by appraisal waiver or waiving their appraisal, and then
Yeah,
also having to come up with that difference to show the best hand.
yeah. Um, this is where it could get really tricky. And I'm using a scenario that is based on Sacramento County because that's where we are, right? Um, and your county loan limit here is 598. So let's say you're making an offer on a property that's listed at 600, and you offer 700 on the property. So $100,000 over. If the appraisal comes in at, let's say, 675, there's only an appraisal gap of 25,000. So if the people wanted to, they would bring in an additional 25,000. Let's say that they had 10,000 or 10% down. So that's 67,500 that they'd be putting down. On the closing costs, I'm just using round numbers here for closing costs. We're just going to use 10,000. But you're above the county loan limit by 9,250. So what that would mean is not only do you have to come in with your appraisal gap, but you also have to come in with extra money down to bring it down to the county loan limit. So now you were thinking that you were only going to come in with 67,500, but now you're coming in with 111,000. So it kind of starts to snowball when you get above that county loan limit as well. And let's go back to that same scenario where, let's say you max the loan officer, me, maxes out the person at 50% debt to income ratio. And their max pre-approval was for 600. Well, you're going to increase their taxes by offering 700 on the property by $104 a month. So that's going to make their new debt to income ratio 53%. So to get back below that 53%, they're going to need to bring in an additional 19,500. So now your new cash to close is 131,000. And this is somebody that it almost doubled their cash to close. So
And this is on a conventional loan. This is not talking about FHA, because that would be a whole different ballpark as well, because they have a different, they're probably not going to waive the appraisal, but for conventional, when they're putting probably, way more down, that's when you start getting into those, differences and variance and costs to close and coming in with that appraisal gap.
Yes. 100%. And especially like in other counties too, the FHA appraisal amount is actually less than appraisal, that the county loan limit is actually less than the conventional county loan limit. So you also need to be careful on other counties. If the loan officer you're working with is in, let's say, Sacramento County, and you have a buyer down in Stockton, make sure that they know, call them and say, hey, I'm showing them properties down in Stockton, because it could be a completely different story altogether. And you don't want to be writing an offer on a property that's approved in Sacramento County down in a different county. So just be aware of that. Some
And
other things. Oh, go ahead.
And another thing that I think is prevalent is there's a lot of new home developments. And just because you get the purchase price and then start going in the upgrades, you might reach that limit if you start to go over that with all the upgrades you're adding to the new home development. So it's definitely a
Correct.
conversation with your lender and your clients going, hey, we're getting close to that gap. We're going to be talking numbers and how much you got to save by the close when it's built.
Yeah,
Because that loan limit is going to have some extra fun stuff on top of what you're upgrading the new home for.
exactly.
And that's a hard conversation sometimes because you're
Yeah.
like, you're going to have to go with carpet, not hot red. Sorry. Because, those are things that we're starting to see, because I've seen new home developments, like the limit for that county is 550. And it's like, okay, we're at 555
Yeah.
with the
Yes.
upgrades, so it's hitting some hard numbers, especially with the appraisal and new home developments I've seen.
For sure. For sure. Some other big things that could really start to snowball when you start going over and all these other things is, and I put it on here too, is be upfront with your clients, no matter what, about HOA, Melrose, flood, and fire. You start getting up into the foothills, you start going up just past the El Dorado Hills Boulevard, and next thing you know, fire insurance is $250 a month, $300 a month, and all of a sudden they're not approved anymore. Or they're buying an Atomis and there is flood there. Flood isn't super expensive, but it still could throw somebody out of being approved. So you're looking maybe $50, $60 a month for flood. Melrose, certain areas of Elk Grove, pretty pricey. Certain areas of Lincoln are pretty pricey. So that could really affect what somebody could be approved for. And HOA. And if you got a combo of at least 3 of those, like be super upfront with that. I've seen an HOA, Melrose, and flood insurance all come out to $900 a month. I mean, that's almost $200,000 worth of approval amount right there. So it could affect quite a bit. But that's really kind of what I wanted to get out there about appraisal gaps and that type of stuff.
Definitely, important information for everybody to know. Do you know if there's any training for lenders on this topic?
Well, I mean, they can always, like, seriously, you guys could call me and I could go over it with you. Happy to do it. I've been doing some Zoom calls for different teams. Heck, I even been doing some Zoom calls down in the Bay Area for teams that saw some stuff on that I did on LinkedIn. I have a whiteboard video on LinkedIn about this. So if you guys want, you can just jump on my LinkedIn account and do a whiteboard video. I think I explain it all in like 6 minutes with no fluff.
Nice. And then, so for the agents, or anyone looking to get a little bit more information or trainings on this type of subject, because it's very prevalent right now in today's market, where can we ask those questions besides LinkedIn, email, website, phone call? What's the best format of communication to get a hold of you and ask some questions?
For me, reached out through LinkedIn. I do a ton of stuff on LinkedIn. So they can always just jump on LinkedIn, message me through LinkedIn. It seems to be the absolute best because I'm not a Facebooker, really. I do put some stuff on there. I'm not an Instagrammer, even though Kaylee, I did make you follow my food Instagram, my food pictures. But yes, that LinkedIn is absolutely the best spot.
If for our listeners out there, if you don't know, Chris is a fantastic cook. As a side note, to learn more about Chris, he does love his food and he's great at pizzas.
Yeah.
A little fun fact.
Yeah, multiple pizza ovens in the backyard. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you, Chris. And for all our listeners out there, you can reach him out at LinkedIn. We'll have all the information below, and I'm going to transfer it to Tony.
Thanks, Kaylee. And thank you, Chris, for taking the time to talk to us today.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Thank you so much for having me. If you guys ever want me to come back, I can talk about anything you want to talk about. So